you ready? The time has come. Let the show begin.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Take two.
Boom.
When in doubt, turn it off. Turn it back on again.
It's like that old Nintendo game, right? Where you take it out, blow it, put it back in there. Yep.
Hey man, like I had Steve Sesmides on last week. This isn't Joe Rogan. I don't have Jeremy in the corner over there doing it for us. So we'll work through it. How you been, my friend?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Good. Busy. Exciting times in our industry. Wild times for sure.
Yeah.
But that was one of the reasons I wanted to get you on. The amount of experience you have, all facets of the space, obviously predominantly sales. But while I'm figuring out a few things on my end here, can you do me a huge favor, just for anybody that doesn't know Dustin Rhoades? Give us a rundown for me real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, man. 26 years now in the industry, right? Kind of old hen, I guess you'd call it, right? So the
Wow.
piece of it is, I've been doing this, started out in direct sales, Pacesetter Corporation back in the day, did 10 steps to sell, worked my way up. I've worked for a lot of large organizations, been part of 3 businesses we built up to be bought out. Just recently was a SVP at Great Day, and now been doing a little bit of consulting and fractional work, just keep myself busy and, just pretty much understand all things sales. Even wrote a book called Dumb Tax, Find Your Wife for Hiring. Sold several copies of that. Actually spoke with BG at the top 500. We did like a little book signing thing, which was awesome experience. He is a absolute wealth of knowledge, and I know has got a farm of other leaders that have came up underneath them that pretty impressive. But I pretty much know design sales, done neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, a lot of different things in there, trying to always keep my game leveled up. And especially recently with a lot of the, AI additives and things into it and all that, what I call fear tactics, just sifting through that and always trying to stay up to date on any industry trends and things as well. So, long story short, just pretty much know all parts of the industry, not just one. So it's nice to see it from a 360-degree view, right? Called manager in the middle.
For sure. That's something that I've always, with you specifically, I didn't realize it was 26 years. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shaved head, dude. I had that gray hair, man. That's it.
Well, you shave it by choice, right? This is not by choice, but,
Yeah.
So let's dive. I want to dive right in. You brought up AI. There's a couple things, and Steve last week, Sesmides was like, "Yeah, I'm not as dark or as gloomy as Joe on some of this, but I don't mean to be that way. There's just some things that I keep hearing, seeing that are, I don't know. I just think fundamentally aren't right. But I also tread lightly because there is that saying, right or be rich. So."
Mm-hmm.
The first one that I noticed, it's not AI necessarily related, but maybe it is in a way. And I want to get your take. It's all over LinkedIn. It's all over. It's been all over the in-home sales group. Is one call close.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, everybody going, is it dead? Is it, whatever, all the different things. I'll just turn it over to you before I lose my mind on the subject.
So, I guess there's one or two thoughts there, right? And I love this. Actually, I was talking to a manager a while back, and I have the pleasure of managing managers now, right? Not being so much deep in the weeds, right? But he said this to me, and I cracked up, and I said, "You're 100% right." He goes, "Dude, economy and fear is built by man." Right. So if I look at economy is built by the leader, right? It's what the leader is willing to accept. It's what you tolerate. like as a kid growing up, I learned, what you listen into back in the day was like Rush Limbaugh and that crap right there. What you feed in between years becomes reality, right? And I think too many people are speaking things into existence. I'll give you a little neuroscience fact, right? So if if I say something out loud that's positive, my brain starts paying attention to that and grabs a hold of it, right? If I say something negative, my brain pays attention knowing that that is basically something that's important to me, so it grabs a hold of that as well, right? So that's why they say the 5 people you hang around with, right? So most of it, because how they're talking is what your brain perceives as important, which is what you grab a hold of, right? So I think we, as human individuals, don't understand the power of our brain and the things that it's actually capable of doing, and we fall into traps of being just like everyone else, right? And I think when we swim in a sea of sameness and we just follow the pack blindly, I think will fall into those same routines, which is why 96% of contractors fail in 2 years. 1 in 30 lasts longer than 10. All that fun jazz we talk about in the house all the time. But is one call closed dead? No way in hell. No, anyone that thinks that's weak, right? And if I piss a lot of people off here, I hope I do, and I hope you record this and you make memes of me. I love it. Go ahead. But the purpose is no, it's and the only reason why people say that is because they feel like it's difficult, like the Chat GPT thing, right? And look at if I put in Chat GPT, they can get a lot of product stuff in here and get basically try to become what I call a product engineer.
Yeah.
Well, with the salespeople, if you're doing it right, you're not selling the product, you sell the benefit of what it does to increase their life in a future tense, right? So it's about what problems does it solve, and then emotionally, what's that going to make me feel when it's already done, right? So there's a lot of things missing where a lot of companies teach they try to condense things down to make it more time friendly. I'm not saying you need to be in the house 3-4 hours. I don't really believe in that either. But this term strategic and deliberate, right? If I don't know why I'm actually going into a house, I haven't called it the warm up. It's either a waste of time or it's very strategic.
Yeah.
There's things that set you up through the process that feels like there's no pressure if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
It feels like a logical conclusion, right? And those are the things that I think 100%. Be back bust, you'll be broke. If you're not looking at the be back bust, be broke theory, then you're depending on follow up. I tell you right now, you're at a bigger disadvantage with follow up than you are by one call close.
Yeah, I mean, you gave a probably a more detailed answer than I gave, and I don't want to necessarily offend anybody, but I can't control that either. So, I it's going to offend somebody. I'm bad. Sometimes I don't give the best analogies, but I'm going to give this one anyway. It's like gun laws. It's not the gun's fault.
Yep.
Right. Or let's just say drinking and driving. It's not the car's fault. Right. Whatever one you want to do. The strategy of a one call close. It's not. The strategy is not incorrect. It's the poorly skilled, poorly trained, poorly developed salesperson. I don't even want to call him that hack that is out there. And that's been the case for as long as I've been in, but I think it's amplified now because of what we just went through, with this pandemic. The amount of people that got into the industry and, we didn't train and develop them like we're used to from years beyond.
Yep.
And you see it on all facets. I secret shop for one of my clients. I secret shopped yesterday, end of last week. And when you see a true pro, and if, I'm in the industry, as long as you've been into, like, I'm enamored, like, I respect it. And when you see a hack though, man, I tell you, it's painful because I should be like, oh my God, this is great. It's gonna be great, easy competition, which it is because the bar's low. We all know that, but I get angry because of the outlook on the industry. And then you start getting these posts. I see them from CEOs where they're like, almost like a badge of honor. We're moving away from the one call close, and I was like, I think you're solving the wrong problem, man.
Yeah, solving a symptom.
Yeah, right. And I don't know. It's just, and there were a lot of great comments in the group. Thing I love about our group with In-Home Sales Pro, for the most part, everybody seems to be respectful of one another's opinions, which is important, right?
Absolutely.
But that, just, I don't know, it eats at me. And then the reason why I brought that up first, because it does tie to some of the AI in terms of people saying, are we always going to be in the home?
Yeah.
And that's kind of my next question to you around that is, does AI remove what we do in the home?
I think eventually it could. I mean, I always look at this and trust me, I dig into AI like crazy, right? I'm trying to learn it,
Oh,
stay
I
ahead
know
of
you
it.
do.
Yeah.
I know
All you
you
gotta do is look at my dumb tax video I put on like the other day, right? I built all that thing based on using it and clipped it together and did all kinds of stuff. But it's like you gotta embrace it, right? And either you're going to be scared of it or you're going to use it as a weapon. And I think the biggest thing is like I always like to use that analogy, right? It's old school, right? So again, I bring a lot of old school things, try to put a new school flavor on it. But if I'm looking at a 6 and you're looking at a 9, we can argue till we're freaking blue in the face, but both of us are right. We're just looking at it from our own perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I love that old saying, right? In order to sell John Brown what John Brown buys, must first see John Brown through John Brown's eyes.
Yep.
When I heard that like 100 years ago, right? I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. That was reminded me is like, forget AI, dude. Look at it from a customer's perspective, right? If I look at it right now and I'm looking at it as a customer of somebody coming into my house that I'm trying to trust, and like, think about it. How many copycats and how many bots? I was watching something the other day where this guy looks just like a girl and he looked just like a public figure and he waves his hand in one and it's showing his face in the other, waving a hand that's a completely different one. I mean, right now there's so much mirroring and discredit, and then basically what I call influencer trust that's actually broken out there. So like
Yep.
really the risk you run into is the scammers are going to get higher, right? There's things that are going to get that are going to be killing the industry or killing not the industry, but it's going to be killing AI because of the lack of credibility, because you don't know who you're really talking to, right? And this were people from different countries that were running into it. I mean, so there's always going to be a pivot on both sides of it. I look at it like this could be one of the biggest disasters, and a lot of people could lose money and get ripped off. I mean, think about even just going into your email. You ever gone to your email, right? You get this thing, it looks like somebody you're expecting it to be, and it's actually somebody else, which is a scammer, which can end up holding your company hostage for, 700,000, couple $1 million, right? Now you got to pay the terrorists to get your money back. Well, what if that happened to your personal finances, right? So
Yeah.
when you're looking at things from different perspectives, it kind of puts a limelight and removes a little bit of the stress, right? But I look at it as like, yeah, you can what if to death 3 to 5 years from now and say that, yeah, well, let's say there is a time where we're not able to go into the house. But at that time, dude, there'll probably be like visual transformations. We're actually doing like augmented reality, which is pretty cool, right? Be able to throw the windows already in and open and close them, not just the picture of it open and closing, right? Like some of the stuff I've seen some pretty cool things.
Yeah.
But I would tell you, if you don't embrace it, yeah, it could replace you 100%, right? But if you don't, if you embrace it and you figure out how it pivots and how it's changing and you stay ahead of it, I don't think you got anything to worry about, especially probably the next 5 years, right? I think that there's so many things and so much FDA laws. And, one of the cool things about my last position is I got to deal with a lot of high end tech and then back end and understanding like securities. They go on to it as well. So there's a lot of security clearances and things like that that have to be done that are getting blocked that I think are going to slow things down, especially in specific regions that you even have to worry about. So I'm not ultimately like, oh my God, the sky's falling, right? But it's my kid did say last night, I will tell you, which is pretty funny. He goes, Dad, in like 10 years, your job's going to be irrelevant. All jobs are going to be irrelevant. AI is going to take everything over, right? So look at the younger generation. They're convinced, but guess what? You are what you eat. If I'm looking at TikTok, I'm looking at Facebook, I'm looking at Instagram, and that's on my algorithm. Well, man, you need to get in there and erase your history and put something positive in there that you can control, not things you can't control, because that's what eats you up, right? Your brain's designed for fear, and if that's what you're eating, yeah, then you're going to fear monger a little bit. So you got to be careful with that stuff.
You just said another word that I think is important to recognize, understand the reality of it is algorithm. I mean, on all fronts, right? Because like you said, you are what, the company, combination of, or compilation of your top 5 closest friends. Well, if one of those is your gosh darn social media feed, which it probably is, right?
Yep.
It's concerning in some cases, and I don't want to go down that path. But in terms of what we talk about with mindset, it's definitely, I'm sure there'll be studies on it well past, years from now that will be like, but I think it's pretty obvious to tell that there's something there to be cognizant of, at least. The other thing that pops into my brain with it, I was talking to a gentleman this morning about this, is we've caused some of this ourselves, right? Meaning,
Mhm.
a good friend of mine works with CarMax, does a lot of consulting for them and has over the years, and they say the same thing there. They were like, we call, people that don't like CarMax or don't like some of these online ways to buy cars now. He's like, they have no one to blame but themselves.
Yep.
The industry, and I've always, not to be, we're probably, I don't know, 5-10 years behind them, right? Historically, with the way we do things. But it was when somebody like CarMax charges, on average, I read $2,800 more per unit they make, but charge ultimately the customer. And the customer's fine with it because they're the largest dealer in the world, that they're willing to pay more to not go through the process.
Yeah, it's time. And I think it's what comes into my brain all the time, dude. It's like, in my busy life, and I can tell you that, I live in a more than modest house, and
Yeah.
you walk into my house and you're trying to steal my time talking about stuff that doesn't matter. I'm going to crush you in about 5 minutes, and I'm
Yeah.
going to kick you out of my house, right? Because if I don't feel like it's sincere and genuine, and you're just asking me about my plants or my stuff on the trees or my benches out front, I'm going to be like, well, that's not what the hell I called you out for. What's up, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you're in this day and age, if you think just walking in, blocking, tackling, creating a friend or relationships enough, it's not. You got to understand, who am I talking to, right? What's the what's the psychology back behind it? Am I talking to a red, a yellow, a blue, a white personality color, right? So how do I navigate with each one of these people to make sure I am who I am and I'm not becoming a villain every time I walk in the door, right? Because I always believe you're three people when you walk in the door. You're a villain, a hero, or a guide, right? But you always start out as a villain. So if I start as a villain, they look at me like I'm in there to get their money. Well, I got to shift that villain to something else, right? Because I always joke around. I can warm up in 5-10 minutes and find out more about what that client needs and wants and their buying habits and their shrine and those things than somebody can do in 30-45 minutes. Guarantee to you, because
Yeah.
there's a formula to it, right? But until you understand the formula, and it might be a disadvantage or a major advantage to me that my wife's a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. So I got I got her in my back pocket telling me all the stuff I do wrong. So I can't outsmart her. I can't win there. But again, I learn what
Yeah.
not to do, right? I learn how to communicate, and I learn what's important and how the brain works. So, but the gist is, again, like, you have to be able to pivot, right? And like, I love Chuck Toki to death. He's one of my good buddies, and we don't spend that much time, but when we do talk, it's like talking to a brother from another mother, right? But I look at it, so like, what he's doing is he's going out and he's taking some basic fundamentals, but he's blistered it in with, like, the Chris Voss and some of the things that he's coaching and having stuff going on to it, which I love Chris Voss, right? And I've been doing that same stuff he's working on, but he's getting coached, which is amazing. But I've been working on that same stuff behind the scenes for probably like 15 years, to be honest, right? So it's like
Yeah.
catching up now, and people are realizing you can't do what you've always done, you get what you've always gotten, right? But the gist is, like, you still have to get commitments, you still got to pre-close, you still have to do these things, you still got to be a master of offering financing and selling affordability, right? And if you're not functionally doing these things, I don't freaking care if it's an AI, I don't care if it's you, I don't care if it's anything. Like, the human brain works the way the human brain's going to work, right? And if you don't realize how the human brain works in today, right? That's what AI does. It tempts you on, basically, it pulls into your temptations, it pulls into your eyes, it starts to understand your modeling, your behaviors, your repetitive patterns, all those things that come into play. Like, that's why I was joking around. Like, in my book, I talk about how to read eyes, right? Is it visual, audio, kinesthetic? Are they internal dialoguing right? Are they creating this conversation? Are they lying this conversation? There's lots of cool ass things that you can get into, excuse my language, to make sure that you are putting yourself in a position to be the best advocate for the homeowner and pull their heartstrings. Is what I believe. I read something, I think, on the stream the other day. It said, make them feel like the most important person with that sticky note. I think maybe Gottlieb, a couple people were throwing that. But I always
Yeah.
believe, like, Darren Hardy had this thing growing up. And when I was a kid, like, how I learned to be a leader and how I learned to do, like, just be a good person, is I listened to this book called The Compound Effect from Darren Hardy, right? And The Compound Effect was kind of a Bible for me growing up. And I was actually talking to a guy that I was helping, and he goes, yeah, dude, I've read that book. I love that book. And matter of fact, I make my leaders read that book. I'm like, well, cool. How many times you read it? He goes, well, I've read like 5. Okay. I said, you know how many times I've read that book? I said, over 100. I said, because I always believe the one by 52 or 52 one theory, right? So I can read one book 52 times, or I can read 52 books one time. One is entertainment, the other is education and mastery, right? Am I doing it? As I mastered it? My results prove I mastered it. And when you go through it and you start learning like why we do what we do, and you start understanding your behaviors and your patterns, dude, that's when life becomes dangerous, dude. You actually level up, but you're not going to level up. You're going to stay the same if you always think the way you think and you don't realize how to take like your naturals and pivot. Like one of the
Oh, did we lose him? All right, man, we're having some challenges here. That's a good opportunity though to take a break for a second. Don't leave us if you're on live, and we'll get them right back in. I do want to mention one thing: In-Home Sales Pro private group on Facebook. Hold on one second, Dustin. We'll get right back into it. And then also the newest group, which is the Sales Manager Alliance. Again, it's in Facebook. Just search it under the groups, under the in your search bar, Facebook. I guess it would be the Sales Manager Alliance or Sales Manager Alliance. You'll see it. But anyway, back to Dustin. Sorry. Go what you were going on there. I want to keep going down that if you can.
Yeah, not a big deal, man. So I was just saying, is like you got to figure out where in the mind people are running, right? If you're not taking again your steps and your commitments and figuring out how to sound like a natural human being today, and you're not coming off genuine, I would call the homeowner. They can smell that, right? I always say leave the scent to the smellsman at the door, right? Because like nobody wants to talk to a sales guy. That's where we I think get a bad reputation as an industry. Is we send people out in the field sounding so scripted, it sounds unnatural, right? And the second people, just natural human beings pick up on that, it shuts them off, right? The second we feel like we're being sold, there's a negative connotation to it, right? But if I like that, helping them buy or leading them or guiding them in the right direction. If I can be your guide, not your hero, that's supposed to be the customer, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not the villain, that's the project itself. And the fact of why they do it is bigger than their why not how much better my product is than somebody else's product. That's called feature dumping. And I call that a walking brochure.
Yeah.
So if you're a walking brochure out there and the only thing you're good at is the product, well then cool, you can be replaced. Because
Yeah.
I can send you a scissor reel with a product brochure and I can probably explain the product better than you can. And the key is that if the customer's only buying product, great. But how do they know the difference, right? If my car showed up in 12 boxes and a stack of 4 tires, how important would those parts be? Or would the mechanic be now the most important part?
It's a good that's a good point. I will challenge you on one thing. I
love
not
it.
challenge, but I just think I sometimes don't even think guys are robotic because they still don't know it like we did when we started. I mean, you couldn't run a lead when I started in this business if you weren't on model. Like, I mean on model and again, robotic probably, but they would take that. And that's why I say I challenge it. But then to your point, they don't know the model. So then they're thinking about what to say. And so maybe it's not robotic, but again, it's not engaging. It's not connecting. And the people are like, oh, this guy's not worth my time. You're supposed to be quote unquote the expert.
Yeah.
And we're not.
It's chaotic is what it is, right? You run into it, you're unprepared. That's preparation, right? Part of the 6 P's. That's chaotic, right? And if you're allowing yourself, and I get to look at it if you're a leader on this call, or even you're a rep in this call, is like, think if you work for a business that's been in business 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, right? 40 years plus, right? So some of these businesses have spent decades building their reputation and then basically throughput, spending a ton of money on advertising to get people in these houses. I think what a lot of times as sales representatives, we don't realize, and I didn't back in the day, I didn't even know there's an installation team when I first started out, right? I think Pacesetter kept us from even knowing I didn't even know how the windows get installed. I didn't even know they did get installed, right? I'm like, let's go out and sell stuff, have fun, have conversations, create a need, and let's go, right?
Yeah.
But the challenge is people don't realize when you walk in the house, you're not only representing yourself, you're representing the 40 years of reputation that owner's built, right? The amount of money in marketing, the throughput, the installation teams that need to feed their families. Like, you're representing everybody. So when you go in there, you make a fool of yourself because you're, pulling from shooting from the hip, or you're not strategic and deliberate, or you got no process or no basically beginning and end that actually makes sense to a customer. You're literally destroying the reputation of the people who work so hard to get you in the house, and they trusted you with that, their family, their throughput, the rest of the people in the team that you're responsible for. So, we talk about the call centers like the director of first impressions, right? That's
Yeah.
actually, you're the lasting director of impressions, especially if they do not buy, right? So there's and my joke is, a bad closing ratio is the same as a bad review. Right. So it's you got to kind of look at it that way from your perspective. Am I doing everything I need to do? Right. Have I learned the process? How much time am I taking investing in my career? And one thing, and I want to ask you a question on it too, but I they talked about this thing, right? If you went and there was a gravestone at the end of life, right? And you kind of reverse back and you're looking at it kind of like everyone see that Ebenezer Scrooge show
Yeah.
they walk in the past, the future, and basically the present.
Yep.
And you're sitting there and you're looking at your tombstone, right? And they wrote on it, and 60% of what we do on this earth is work, right? If not greater. Like, so some of us aren't good at saving, some of us aren't good at that, so we end up working way later than we need to be because we didn't prepare for the rainy day. But if 60% of what you do is work, and say your sales representative, right? And they wrote on and then the people that surrounded you actually wrote on your tombstone what they thought the most about you: your effort, your design, your ability to run the play. What is it right to? What would they write about you? He was good at warm up. What was the thing that they wrote that helped you execute and elevate the things we need to do to be better at our job or our career? Not job stands for just over broke, by the way, our career.
Yeah.
And what we put pride in ourselves for 60% of your life, right? And if you're not willing to execute and be as perfect as you can be with the 60% you do with your living to feed your family and others around you, then what else are you not putting effort in?
Your priorities will tell me everything. You know what I mean? That kind of,
Yeah.
you can spot it a mile away. You just hit the nail on the head with the P word, pride. I don't, especially in this industry where you're paid on performance. And, we may talk about this all the time on every one of these, but if this is the wrong business to be in, if you're not willing to at least aspire to be the best, or I mean, the best to your ability, not the best on your team, because that's subjective too. But I just don't understand that when someone it'd be, between being an athlete and a professional salesperson, same thing. You're not there to just get by,
Yeah. One of my best friends, his name's Derek Cox, right? He played like 7 years NFL. He's actually an agent. He's actually Brandon Aubrey, the kicker for the Cowboys. That's one of his players, right? So I have the opportunity. I get to hang out with him all the time, right? So I love hearing stories about, when he was playing, around the people. He introduced me to people like Rashad Jennings, a lot of the, names we recognize, right? So he's part of the NFL group.
Yeah.
And so I've got a chance to hang out with a lot of these guys. Drew Brees goes to our church, right? There's some cool, like what I call NFL individuals, right? And we talk to them just like normal dudes, man. Just normal, just shoot the crap, right? Everybody gives each other stuff. But when you sit around, you start listening to like the discipline and the functionality in their head and basically the routines. Man, they're all about their routines, right? So that's why I was laughed, because we use a sports analogy all the time in our industry, right? An amateur press get it right, a professional press can't get it wrong.
Yep.
But it's not just getting it wrong, dude. You look at it like I spending a little bit of time with him. I watched him help coach some kids. I were co-coaching a team, and just watching the preciseness of the drill, the footsteps, the things, the execution mode. I mean, the difference in I would say 5% execution is literally like when you get to that level, like from let's say collegiate to the NFL, right? It's like 1% difference.
Yeah.
Right. It's literally the difference between basically the top and then the people that are starting is about a 1% difference. And it's a person who puts it in that can do it as autopilot, where you don't have to even think about it. Right? I've had him come in and talk to my leadership teams and stuff. And you know what the first lesson he ever taught was? It was amazing. I didn't expect him to come in and say, you just pick whatever you want to.
Yeah,
The
let it
team's going
rip.
to eat it up anyways, right?
Huh.
And if you take it, it was on this one thing. He says, it was on perfect attendance. He goes, the one thing no one can ever take away from you that you always have control of is to just show up. Do you show up to training? Do you show up to here? And he talked about the modeling that he had already made enough practices to where he had already qualified for enough practices, right? And he was laying down in bed, decided when he go to practice. Dad came in and said, he goes, what are you doing laying down? He goes, well, Dad, I already hit enough practices. He goes, so there's how many more practices? Well, there's only 3 more. He goes, so yeah, I've gone to 25 practices. I need to do 28 total. He goes, I met my mark. He goes, and that's why you're not going to make it. And he walks out. And his dad walks out, right? He sits there and he's laying in bed thinking, I got my stuff. I don't want to it. He goes, and I kept rolling in my freaking head, right? Got rolling in my head. So what do? I freaking get up, head out pissed off, go to practice, got through practice onto it. And the coach says, glad you showed up today. I know you didn't have to. That was a test, right? And that was when he ended up getting a scholarship to go to William and Mary, right? He's
Oh,
actually
wow.
on the Hall of Fame of William and Mary, basically. He's been, played 7 years, played for the Patriots, Jaguars, Chargers, and Vikings, right? So he's actually a Legends player too. So, but it's like the cool thing about it is like when you start learning and you can take people in your group that have that same type of mindset into it, dude. Like, listen, you still got to figure out AI, right? AI is something that just doesn't take care of itself. It doesn't show up, dude. If you don't know coding, you're not going to have a Claude code, all that other bull crap that you got to constantly, it's changing every 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really, how's that going to make you better right now? Right. So if you look at it, like we can hope and we can wish, and we get into it, and some of the tech we have into it, where, trust me, working with some of the individuals that I've worked with, where they're doing like GPTs inside of freaking businesses, there's some people who really know what they're doing that can be effective. But you have to look at things like AI as a tool to help me be better, not to worse. Like you're using it as a role play with yourself, right? Like, Zero, Rilla, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, are you actually taking the time to utilize that and know how to actually use a tool? Right? Because I guarantee you on this call, guarantee you, right? There's people who have it that it hasn't been set up correctly. So it's only halfway being used. If it started out as this best thing in the world, then it doesn't really get used. So they don't know how, right? Are you tooling it? Are you role playing? Are you using it for the right way? Or are you thinking about it in the wrong way? Right? Again, that comes to that. If you're looking at a 6 and I'm looking at a 9, we're
Oh, we lost him again. Hopefully he'll be able to join us back on. He should be right back on again. Make sure if you can jump on. If you're in sales management, sales leadership, there's a new private group that's also called the Sales Manager Alliance, built the same way that the In-Home Sales Pro group is, but just tailored a little bit more towards the frontline sales managers and leaders within our industry. So just go into Facebook and, he'll be back in a minute. Just go into Facebook, into your search bar through Facebook under groups. It is a private group. Just make sure I don't even think there's any questions to answer, but it'll get approved right away and get into the Sales Manager Alliance. So hopefully we'll get Dustin back on here any second now. All right. Well, while we're waiting on him, I am excited. I posted probably maybe a day or so ago about some of the upcoming guests. Really super excited. It'll be a first-time guest tomorrow, Matt Fitzgerald. Many of you know him, longtime industry veteran. We've got Tony Rhoades coming up. Let's see. We got Dustin back. We'll add to the list. Let's see. There he is. Oh. No, I can't hear you. This is the reason why we do these live. I don't know if it's anything on my end. Well, I'm trying to see if we can hear him. Nope, he'll come back here in a second. So again, Matt Fitzgerald will be joining us tomorrow, Friday. It looks like we have a frontline sales leader from a one-day bath business, probably one of the bigger markets in the country. Mike, also known as Mike E. Miller, will be joining us. Let's see. Here we go. How about now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. You're good. We're back.
Oh my gosh, that was strange as heck.
All good.
Yeah, these big old block walls, man. It's
Hey.
San Diego block walls, bro. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know where we got cut off. That's why I just want to make sure. I didn't know if there was anything missing on that. And
No, I was just talking about the difference between the 6 and the 9, and we're looking at it and again, it's a perception thing. And I think 90% of the stuff that we're dealing with right now is a perception and a thought process, not a reality yet, right?
Yeah.
Eventually it could be, but you can't live in the future. You're only promised today, right? And that's what I tell you we need to focus on.
that's a good point. And I'll tell you, I was reading let's see, I'm trying to remember. I was reading an article. I think it was maybe written in the middle of 2025, but it talked about a lot of the things that it was talking about with our industry in the future was more in 2026, and just some interesting things that do make things a little bit more optimistic. How much home equity has been drawn out of people's homes. Now, some of that you could say is to pay for existing debt, but the hope is that it's an all-time high. In the past 24 months, there's been total new net accounts for home equity lines more than the previous 12 years combined. Again, hopefully that's not just paying off existing debt, that it's going to be what they're designed for, to invest in the home. So that's coming down the pike, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that was pretty interesting was, if you think about it, it's 2026. Average, we went through a new construction boom 2004, 2005, 2006. Those homes are 20 plus years old. They're ripe to have replacement contracting done. I don't see a lot of people up and moving besides yourself. But you know what I mean? So they're going to stay, and those homes are going to, if they haven't already, because some of them obviously were thrown together pretty haphazardly in the day during the boom. But, we have a lot of good things, I think, coming down here through 2026. That gives a little bit of optimism, but I'm hoping that we have a little bit of a reset, or it has been a reset, to get back to some of these fundamentals that we're so used to.
Yeah. I 100% agree, man. And from I know it's for sales representatives in here, but I would tell you one of the biggest advice I would give you, that I've talked to my, that was 1,600 reps nationwide, right? And it's like now the circle of influence that I have now is, I always tell you, is like, control what you control. Don't worry about what you can't, right? Live and die by the one appointment in front of you. Pretend it's the last appointment you have to feed your family for the next 2 weeks. Completely stole that from Brian Smith, right? So that's what I said. I heard him say that like probably 15 years ago, and I wrote it down immediately when he said it, because it was brilliant. And I'm like, that is phenomenal, right? Because I think if you do treat that, one of the things I've added is every lead is its own financial, right? So if you look at it, if you treat every lead like its own financial, right? Your P&Ls, if you drop the bottom out of it, you're giving stuff away, you sell packages that aren't there. Don't think about you in the moment. Think about, how does that benefit my company too? Right?
Yeah.
Because in order for your company to stay safe, to spend more money in marketing, you got to make sure you feed the funnel the right way and not look just internally. I always say there's three things you need to look at before any decision you make, right? Especially when I'm a sales representative, because I don't know about you guys, but there's sales representatives, including myself, when I was young coming up into the business, right, that I would look at it from my own selfish perspective, and I'd be like, well, I sold the job, I need to get paid. What's up, right? And I didn't look at it like, did I exceed my expectation of myself, my company, and my customer? And if I check all 3 boxes, dude, then everybody wins, right? But if I only worried about myself and say I got loose paperwork, but I have to get paid, and then it takes me a week longer to get that paperwork done, well, that affects cycle time, right? Now, if we don't get paid, the company can't get paid, right? We can't even order the product till that thing's done. Well, is that job measurable? Yeah, it's measurable. Okay, how about orderable? Nope. How about installable? Nope. How about collectible? Nope. So then what happens is, now the company's left in a bad spot, which is probably why, so many of them go out of business, or they struggle, or there's cash flow issues, or they're trying to cut pay or cut salaries down. because a lot of times we don't realize as sales representatives, which is the lifeline, blood support, and the funnel of the entire business, right? Your job is to create clean bookings, right? A booking
Yeah.
your order, yeah, that's
Yeah.
your job. And you take it as your job to make sure that you're doing that for your company, so you're feeding the funnel the right way, so it's healthy, it's the right thing to do, and then you go lay your head on the pillow knowing that I put everybody behind me and their families and the people that I feed in a good spot. Well, that dude, your position could be the most rewarding one in the entire business, because literally you affect the cleanliness of the business from the front, and that feeds all the way to the end, right? I don't think enough people realize it, because we watch The Wolf of Wall Street and all the fun stuff we watch, right? Boiler Room, all those things. You don't think money's the root of all happiness? Look at my file on my face, baby, ear to ear, right? So we're talking
Yeah.
about the Rolexes and all the
Yeah.
fun, flashy stuff, which is the fun stuff. But again, the fun stuff doesn't last if you don't take care of the customer, right? So at the end of the day, our journey, if we really define success, after I help the customer, not that I just get paid, but did I earn a 5-star review? Did I earn a referral? Did I get an add-on sale? Did I have a customer that's going to call me 6 months, 2 years later to want to basically do business with me again? So I treated them right, right? Am I creating a referral engine, or am I worried about one and done? I tell you, you probably should worry about your future career if you're just one and done, and you're not worried about how to nurture your customer after they've trusted you. And I think that's something you learn in life as things go on. You know, that old saying, do unto others you want done to yourself, golden rule. But
Yeah.
also, what have you done to magnify your reputation? What have you done to magnify the result? And what are you looking to accomplish? Who do you need to be to make sure you get referrals? Who do I need to be to make sure my company's taken care of? Who do I need to be as a representative to make sure the customer trusts me? Right? Because if you're not working on communication, which right now I think is the most important thing that a sales rep needs to be working on, is communication, and figuring out different ways to communicate, right? Maybe not just industry books, but maybe outside industry books, psychology books, things of that nature that might get you a whole different mindset. It's like, think of things that make you different, not the same.
It's a good
And,
point.
yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, you just dropped a ton that, one, I don't think somebody was mentioning this to me the other day. And I thought it was it's true. Meaning we don't expose, or we probably don't give reps and even managers, I've noticed in some companies, they don't get enough look behind the curtain to understand how their job, like you even mentioned in the beginning, I didn't even know when, pace setter. I didn't even know who installed it. I didn't know, but it's almost like it's too, we want to stay in our lane and make sure we're doing our job. Our job's to take a preset appointment, be there on time, sell a demonstration, nothing more, nothing less, whatever, at the highest level, right? But they don't understand how it all then ties into, the importance of it going net, becoming true net installed revenue, how that feeds back into the funnel for more leads, right? And it's, I think we just don't, some companies, maybe some are better than others at it, but for some reason we don't show and explain that, maybe even during the onboarding process, just saying, hey, this is how a lead, this is what everything goes into a lead. I know, like Brian Gottlieb always talks about, if you have a rep that's in a slump, put them out on an install. Let them see, the old adage, price is from Buffett. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. Sometimes reps never see that end game, right? So they go, you're in a slump, let's get them out in the field. Let's show them what they get and what goes into that. Same thing on the front end of the business. You for me, at least, when I was a rep full-time, was I definitely respected the lead a lot more. I valued it once I understood. Holy moly. I had a little bit of context just from the previous industry I came from, where I had to prospect for my own business, right? But, when you funnel or onboard a rep who's never sold in the industry, maybe they're young, up and coming, don't really just have any concept of anything, and we don't explain that or show that, we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit, from that perspective. And like, again, I tie back to what you mentioned, where you didn't even know what happened after, you sold the job. And that was the way when I started it, we had no communication with the customer before or after, right? It was like, don't give them your number. And I get it. I understand. But where it hurts is, you have to be able to transfer that belief onto the customer of the whole thing, not just the time in the home there. So just some wild things. I had posted, I wanted to ask you, I'd posted in the Sales Manager Alliance today. A friend of mine was telling me it's just hit home, and that's why I shared it. But his son's getting pitching lessons from an ex MLB guy who now coaches a bunch of pro players over the years. So his son's young, coming up and coming, gets some lessons. And during his lesson, he heard him say basically along the lines, the coach said, hey, look, these 4 fundamental things have to be done no matter what. Everything else, you know, you can have this arm angle, you can do this with your leg, you know, whatever. But these 4, no matter what pitcher in the bigs, these 4 have to get done. No matter what you're trying to accomplish, like he says, some guys want to come here and throw harder. Some guys want to work on this, no problem. But these 4 have to exist. What I'm getting at is, I thought it was powerful, but I want to get your take on it may not be 4, it's maybe more for us, but what do you think those things are? We'll call them disciplines for, say, a sales rep?
Oh, that's really good, by the way.
I don't want to, if you don't, I mean, you know,
because like I'm working on leaders so much, right? So it's, but I get, 100%. There has to be, right? But so again, breaking it down, right? I'm just gonna go off the cuff here because I wasn't even prepared for that meeting. So thanks for teeing me up, bro. Appreciate that.
My bad. Slide, baby.
But you know, I tell you, it's fun. I love that stuff, right? Because what you said is like what you said. Brian told you to do is go out to an install. I've always challenged people: call back your last 3 customers and ask them why they bought from you. Right? That's one of the things that I used to do. But I think it's important before you start. Like if I'm starting a new position, or I'm with a new company, or I'm in there, is like number 1, know your why. Right? So number 1, know why. Why do you exist for the company? And a lot of people don't. A lot of people can't answer that, right? And it's creating net bookings, really, that can be installed, right? So they're measurable, orderable, installable, collectible, that set the right expectations so we can create greatness on the back of the business, right? Because it's important that we all do good, right? People are like, I want to do better than this. I want to crush the competition. Cool. Yeah, there's enough for everybody, right? And then as I feel like you got one opportunity, you walk in the house, or like the great Eminem says, or you leave behind, right? You know, so again, your job is to, you know, in my thing, like pre-flight checklist would be is number 1, preparation. And, you know, do I have the necessary tools I need to be successful before I walk into that house, right? If I'm trying to find my pen last second, my clipboard, my, you know, XYZ, make sure my iPad battery's together, all that fun stuff, right? Then you can't perform if you're worried about something else happening, right? Like I can't, you know, I just can't walk and chew gum at the same time, right? The whole aspect, if you got to focus in on one thing. 2, I would say as a representative, a skill set, a fundamental would be, and it reminded me of the pitching thing, because I played collegiate baseball, right? I was big into that. A year of minor league, like single A, so I wasn't tall enough to make any further, right? They left that for big tall guys like yourself. But but I was taught, you know, basically T drills, swing pattern, and soft toss, right? Those are 3 things you're taught as freaking as an athlete. That goes all the way up into it, and the level of execution depends on how well you can get. And so, like this works into this, right? So when you're giving something, right, and you don't quite know why you're asking to do it, understand your why before you do it, right? If you don't understand like the situation of what you're learning and why you're learning it, if you're not asking why, it means you're following blindly. Right. So in order for you to be the best person, not for your company, for your customer, you need. If I understand the purpose and the why I'm asking it, then I'm literally going to be understand how to ask the question and why it's important. Because if I just say, you say this, they say this, it's terrible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So then what? Right?
Yeah.
No, then you're supposed to write it down. Well, I forgot to write it down. Then what do you do? I got to the end, so I have ADHD, I forgot, right? So there's those things, understand your why, and then identify, like I would say, you know, keep a log. The beautiful thing about like Zero, Rilla, that type of stuff in the back of it, it kind of tells you what your number 1
Oh man, we lost him. See if we can get him back
here.
Here we go. We're good. I don't have you on camera, but I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yep. We're good. Okay. So I said that piece of it again is like you've got a responsibility to understand why you're doing it, and then why it's important, right? So I always look at it like commitments. Well, why are we getting that? it's not trapping people. You're getting them to agree that we're not going to have to revisit this again because we have an agreement, right? And get down to the end. If you look at an agreement between two human beings, that we've covered that and there's nothing else to cover, well, then I keep moving on to the end of it. So truly the best, best close of master presentation, you want to know how you've actually covered all the bases you need to get a deal on the same day. Leave no questions answered, or no questions left to answer, right?
Yeah.
So there's pieces on there to learn your process inside now. And then number 3 is self-reflect, right? A lot of times as representatives is look internally before we look externally, right? And if I'm looking internally, it means before I blame, before I go at another division or another person or the business or a lead, I got to look personally, right? Number 1, did I do what I needed to do in that house to be successful, right? Or am I spending more time after the appointment's over, basically selling my manager on why the job couldn't be sold? If I did a better job selling my manager why it couldn't be sold than I did actually working in the house, then that's a self-reflection thing. I need to look in the mirror. Back in the day, we used to put a mirror on the wall and have the reps tell what the results were in front of the mirror because you can't lie to yourself. It's freaking hard, right? When you know you're lying, all your visual cues are going to come across and it's going to be really tough for you to basically lie to yourself, right? The last thing I would say is you have to find a buoyancy partner or accountability partner that might not even be on your team. It might be through something else that's going to tell you the truth when you're stepping out of line, right? So why do we hire coaches? Because they tell us the uncomfortable truth to keep us on track, right? So if you're not hiring a coach, you're not hiring an individual that helps you stay level and move up, then we end up falling. And if you fall, I think the Brian Gottlieb that I've stole 100% of the time, right? You can be wrong, but don't be wrong for long, right? If somebody ever catch me while I'm following and remind me of how to lift myself back up, it's there. And so that way, again, the accountability side of it on the end of it is what I tell you, it ends because it never stops, right? Because that's called performance management. And if you're not performance managing yourself, then it goes, and I created a video a long time ago, and I'll end on this. It says, I said, if I was closing, let's say at 50% in my business, right? I did that for 3 months in a row. And then I dropped down to 20, right? Think about it. A lot of us as sales individuals have big egos. We're arrogant. We think we can outsell everybody, right? So we've got that methodology that it's tough to listen to anybody because I'm better than you, right? And it's, that's what a mentor of mine said, arrogance is a weakness. Confidence, the ability is a strength, right? So you got to be able to listen to learn. That's why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So, but the purpose is you got to do this. I always challenged all my sales teams, right? And I said, hey, listen, when you're doing really well, and I did this in training, by the way. So when you're doing really well, I'm going to tell you, hey, write your buoyancy plan. And what a buoyancy plan is, it's a letter you write from your top performing self to your bottom performing self or struggling self that reminds you of the things that you did to elevate and model your behavior. I call it modeling, right? Or modeling the behavior of what it looked like when you were doing those things. So instead of having to go look externally, you can look internally. You can review back on your notes on your buoyancy plan. So let me remember, this is what I did when I was pouring at 50. Here's a note I wrote to myself. What are the things I need to start doing, stop doing, and continue doing to be successful? And I need to get back on that track because now it's like I'm talking to myself, right? And internally, sometimes we have to make it our own idea before we actually put an implementation. So don't be arrogant enough to think you don't need to help yourself. And if it's like, if right now I'm, damn near getting a little bit older, right? If I could write a letter to my 20-year-old self and I know what I know now, how much different would things be and how much more successful I would be?
That's a good one. I think brings up a good point. I'm a big believer if a rep, I like the name buoyancy plan, but any kind of book and it becomes your highlight reel, right? That you can self-coach yourself right out of a slump. Yeah. Go back and look, because a lot of times when you're in a slump, you start questioning everything. So go back to when, in your, for me, it's handwritten in a steno pad and say, oh yeah, I remember Mary and, John and Mary. I remember Tommy and, Terry, and you start to remember those sits and those appointments along with the notes, but you also start to relive them, visualize them in your head, and you'll coach yourself right out of it. I like the name, the buoyancy plan. Now, before we finish, what's the, since you were talking about leadership, what would you say those disciplines are from a leadership standpoint?
Oh, all right. 4 basic ones, right?
Okay.
So again, it's cohesive. Are you cohesive with the other brands and the other people in there? Does everybody understand basically working together for a single mission? And that's called clarity, right? Clarity is how you define success. If you don't know how to define success and if you haven't clarified it in your business or your own personal success, then you don't even know what you're chasing. You're just chasing some fictitious number. So I always joke with people like, I want to make my business big. Cool. If you make it that big, then what? Why do you want to do that? Right. So again,
Yeah.
you need to have your why, which is what I call clarity, which is a goal. Right. And then you need to make sure you're over communicating. Like I have to say it over and over again. Sales leadership, one of the jokes I said is you're figuring out 52 different ways to say the same thing in different ways, right? But it's saying
Yeah.
the same exact stuff, right? So again, that's over communicating. And then the other one is checking human systems, which means the parts in the business where the failure is happening and identify is it systemic or execution. And then you model your behavior to keep the success. Because at the end of it, if we do our job correctly, number one, our KPIs are always going to be at least our baseline of mediocrity, which goes up and our floor goes up as we get better. And then number two, I define success as a 5-star review, a referral, an add-on, or a customer for life. And if I don't model those behaviors, then we end up failing, right? So the piece of it is it doesn't really matter what business or what line you're in. It could be B2B, it could be whatever. Take care of the customer, right? Have the customer in mind, right? Begin with the end in mind. Old Stephen Covey says it, right?
Yeah.
So I think they might have said, I think the Bible might have said it as well, right? So the whole thing is if you begin with the end in mind and just try to do the right thing with the right intentions, but perform at the right level, I promise you'll make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year because you're not worried about you and what you need to do. You're worried about helping others, and you're going to get what you want as well.
Boom. I love it. I love it. Hey, if you cool with obviously people connecting with you through the group, right? Still,
Yeah,
everything good
absolutely.
there? Awesome. Make sure you send Dustin a message, and by all means, Dustin, you can put any info you want under a comment on this within the page for a better way to get a hold of you. But I can't thank you enough, man, for joining us. I know it's a little earlier out there on your left coast, but we got through it. So I appreciate it, man. Any parting words before we jump?
No, I'd say remember, elephants don't bite, mosquitoes do. It's not the big things in the appointment that get you. It's the small one you're not paying attention to. So again, major in the minors, but focus directly on what your customers not only saying, but what they're showing you.
Love it.
With that, see you on the board.
I love it, brother. Thank you, man. I hope everybody enjoys it. Please make sure to comment, questions, like it. I know back to the algorithm lives on that and feeds on that. Share it with others. And we'll be back. We're actually back again tomorrow with another episode. So thanks again, Dustin. I appreciate it.
I see, bro. Boom. Let's go.